Welcome back to Guitar Wishes and your Guitar Wish of the Day. This is Lee coming to you once again. That's right, from the beautiful Guitar Wishes facility here in downtown Lincoln, North Carolina. I'm still open. People are walking around doing their thing. But it's very rare that I get to share the red carpet up here and share the screen with someone who has as much talent as the man sitting beside of me. This is Anthony Wellington, bass player extraordinaire. Not many guys are at second base to Vic Wooten.
Well, yeah, he's an amazing talent, and I think one of the things that made that second base chair easy is I was committed to playing bass parts. Bass parts are my favorite part of a song, and that's what he was looking for, somebody who was just satisfied with playing bass parts. He wanted somebody that knew the songs and that could do what he does to a certain degree, but he just really wanted a bass player in the band because he couldn't be the bass player and sing and do all of that amazing stuff. Actually, he could do all of that. Yeah. He just made it easier with a bass player.
He downplays his talent, and he downplays how much theory he knows. He knows a lot, but he downplays it a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He'll tell you, he'll say something like, "I'm gonna take a solo, and I'm only gonna use the wrong notes," and he'll take an amazing solo using the wrong notes. But think about this. Think of how much you got to know specifically that you're using the wrong notes. And like people don't get that. Like this dude just told you he was going to not use the wrong notes. How can he not know what the right notes are?
Yeah, I mean, I use the wrong notes quite a bit.
Me too. I made a living on it.
Hey man, well thanks a lot for joining us today.
It's impromptu.
Yeah, for coming in and hanging out with us here at the shop. You know, I hope you had a great Christmas and everything went well. And New Year's tonight.
I know.
So happy New Year to you. But, you know, being over and above a bass player, you're a teacher as well. And your passion is for teaching. And I see that, you know, just talking to you off camera. You've got your heart's in teaching, and you happen to be a bass player.
Yeah, I love to play. And I think one of the things that validates my teaching is that I'm an active player, because one of the differences with me is my curriculum is born out of my playing. You know what I'm saying? And so when I hear people play, especially some of the students that I've had that are great, that go on to teach, and they're teaching this curriculum that I gifted them, but when I go hear them play, I don't hear it in their playing. So they're just teaching or regurgitating what I show them. But for me, being a self-taught player, my curriculum was derived from what it is that I figured out over the years of playing. So, and it made me realize to have validity in your teaching, it has to be born out of your playing. People have to look at you on stage and be able to see those things that you're swearing by, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you see a lacking of a certain thing that people are teaching, or beginners are learning, something that they're missing that they should be learning from the get-go?
Yeah, well, from the get-go, I advocate giving somebody an instrument. If you're a parent giving a kid an instrument, let them explore it on their own. I do advocate that, because they need to fall in love with the instrument. And if you put them in lessons right away, now you got somebody like me saying, you got to work on this, you got to work on the notes on the bass. And that's before they had a chance to fall in love with it. But it's best to give somebody a guitar bass and let them pose in front of a mirror and do their Pete Townsend windmills and fall in love with it, and then start learning their favorite songs, and then decide if they want to explore it. Because they say, especially with adult students, they say 90% of adult students quit in 2 years. It's because they've been forced and told what to do before they have a chance to fall in love with it. Now, once that kid wants to know how that Metallica song works, then that's when it's time to start giving them lessons. And one of the things, the basic fundamentals that I see that's missing or not being taught is a couple things: hand position and shifting. People are teaching people how to play songs without teaching them proper hand position and how to shift, and everything is built on that. Another simple thing is not knowing the notes on the instrument that you say you love. Like, you'll never meet a saxophone player that don't know the notes on a saxophone, even if they've only been playing a month. You'll never meet a piano player that don't know the notes on the piano, even if they've been playing a month. But you'll meet great guitar players, or what we call a great bass player, who don't know how many notes they have on the instrument, much less the notes. But you'll meet great bass players that know that there are 88 notes on the piano, but won't know how many notes they have on their bass. So just basic fundamental stuff. And the thing with that, Lee, is people can't teach what they don't know.
Exactly.
So I did a lesson with a guy the other day. He's like, man, all the teachers I had, they never told me this thing. And I said, well, teachers are really keen on teaching what they know. So if they didn't teach it to you, it just simply means they don't know it.
Yeah. So you've always been really heavy into theory
Mm-hmm.
and the whys of things. I asked you a question earlier, off camera, about when you are playing, are you thinking about, okay, I'm playing a pentatonic scale, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, or do you have time to do that? And I loved your answer to that.
Well, yeah, you don't have time to do it, and the whole thing is music is a language like English, and the whole point of a language is a descriptive narrative of your sentiments and thoughts that you have. It's a descriptive narrative, and at best, it's a description. At best, like when you say you love something, that's a powerful word, but still at best it's a description. It doesn't do how you feel any justice. Like, I love my girl.
Yeah.
I love ice cream too. Both of those are accurate statements.
Right.
But if it's a fire in the house, I'm not going to try to decide what I'm saving, my girl or the ice cream.
Right.
So at best, it's just a description.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say something funny. But so the thing is with music is, man, everybody has sentiments and thoughts to express. That's part of the human package. But everybody doesn't have the vocabulary to express it. So when somebody's not expressing themselves or improvising well, it doesn't mean those thoughts and sentiments aren't there. They just haven't studied the grammar. No different than if I went to Russia and I had a great meal. That's an honest sentiment that I can't express because I don't speak Russian.
Sure.
I could express it in English, but if somebody asks me in Russian, how do you feel about that meal? It doesn't mean that it's not there. That sentiment isn't there just because I can't express it. So it takes me taking the time to learn the structure of that language.
Right.
And it's the same thing with music. So you're never not using grammar when you talk. So if somebody says to you, yeah, man, I don't use any grammar when I talk. I just say what I feel. They're just not aware of the fact that you're never not using grammar. If what you say has clarity, you just don't understand the grammar that you're using. Right. Makes sense? And even if you use grammar improperly, we still get what you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. Like if you say, hey, what do you do for a living? I say, I is a college student. You know what it is I'm trying to express.
Right.
But you know something was amiss, and I might not get that job if I'm interviewing for you. So it takes me taking the time out to learn that grammar properly so I can express myself in a way that's beneficial to me.
Right.
It's the same thing with music. So I don't want to talk consciously using grammar. I don't want to say, okay, now I need a noun, I.
Right.
Now I need a verb, went. Now I need a preposition, to the store.
Right.
I just want to have the sentiment, I went to the store, and I'm not even thinking about it. You know what I mean? It makes sense.
Absolutely. It does. Yeah, absolutely. And now when you look at your teaching methods, do your teaching methods reflect that with the students that you have? Are you teaching them? Do you see that in their playing later on?
I do, and that's one of the things I pride myself in, because where people go wrong with things like you mentioned, modes and scales and pentatonics, the best way to think of scales are an alphabet. An alphabet is a complete pool of information. Mm-hmm. Like if I taught you the alphabet letters from A to Z,
right.
You know the complete pool of information, right? And they say the average Westerner knows between 20,000 and 50,000 words. And all 50,000 of those words come from those 26 letters, right?
Right.
So that's beneficial. But let's say I teach you that complete alphabet and never teach you anything else. And let's say you learn that English alphabet better than anybody on the planet. If that's the only order you know those letters in, you can't even spell the word cat. So the alphabet is the beginning of this language thing. We have to now segment that alphabet, make it in smaller pieces, rearrange the letters to spell words to express our sentiment. So when people say to me, man, I know all the modes, but I don't know how to use them, I say that's just because you just learned an alphabet. When you learn the modes, you're not at the end. That's not the end game of learning theory. That's the very beginning.
Right.
The first thing I should teach you when I'm teaching you grammar is the English alphabet. That's the very big. That's a scale. The English alphabet is a scale. That's not the end game. You can know. I mean, if you know the English alphabet really well, that doesn't mean you know how to spell multiplication.
Right.
You know. So once I learn Aionian, I need to learn ways to spell words or sentiments. And they may be based on thirds or sixes or arpeggios, all in that Ionian mode. So the Ionian mode was just an alphabet, but the words live inside of it. Arpeggios, now modes, arpeggios, modes, arpeggio, mode. So all of those are little melodic devices, or words, if you will, that I can connect later to express So, like, if I ask you, what did you have for breakfast this morning? You're going to say 5 sentences that you've never said before in your life. You don't realize that you never said them before because they're made up of words you use all the time.
Yeah.
We only got 12 notes. There's no song that you've ever heard in your life that doesn't have the access to these 12 notes.
Right.
But what makes all these songs sound different is just different arrangements of those same notes.
Right.
So we're doing the same thing with music that we're doing with the alphabet.
Wow.
Using it in smaller segments. But nobody's teaching that. They're teaching you the alphabet, but they're not teaching you how to take that pentatonic scale and break it up into words like. So that didn't sound like a scale anymore.
Right.
But I never left that scale position. All of that was from that same position.
Wow.
That was the same scale, but all I did was, I can say, I really like hot dogs. Really, I like hot dogs. I like hot dogs, really. All 4 of those sentences had the same words, but different arrangements of them.
Wow.
But if I said, I like really hot dogs, that doesn't make any sense. Unless I start a company called Really Hot Dogs. Then that sentence makes sense too. It's just about how you arrange stuff. That's what vocabulary is, not the alphabet. The alphabet isn't vocabulary. The scale itself isn't vocabulary.
That's amazing. It's so incredibly insightful. And it must be this kind of thing that, I'm sure Vic shares the same sort of passion for this type of teaching.
He does. And I think when people hear somebody play as well as he plays, they don't realize that all of the work that he put in. Like Victor, like you said, he downplays his knowledge of theory. I've seen him read a piece of music. He plays upright, he plays bass, and he plays cello. But a cello is tuned in fifths. I've seen him read a piece of music on electric bass, having it played in fourths, but while reading it, and then the same piece pick up a cello, and now having to play in fifths, reading the same piece of music. That's genius level stuff. But people don't get to see, they aren't privy to that side of it and the vastness of his knowledge. So he's really big into education. I mean, he bought 150 acres of land just to educate people. So that says enough already.
And I wanted to get to that. Is this passion for this kind of learning, this kind of teaching, is that what brought you two together to work at these camps together?
Well, we became friends early in the 90s before he decided to do a camp. And we were just friends, and we met with him being on tour, and I had stopped playing bass and started playing again. But he just had always said, I want to one day just buy some land and do a camp. I want to start doing camps. So I think we did the first camp in 2000. It was his camp, and he invited me and some of his friends along to teach, and it just started growing there. From there, other bass camps popped up, and I'm doing my own camps now. So I'm glad that he started that trend, because
it was the first one, wasn't it?
It was the first one, and it can't hurt. For me, I'm all about. I want to hear good music, so I want to hear music from people who truly love their instrument enough to know all they can about it.
That's awesome.
And so it's not selfish at all, because I want people to attend camps. I don't care if it's my camp or anybody else's camp, but if it makes them more knowledgeable about music and they play bass better and write songs better, then we all benefit from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the natural progression from the camps is Bassology, I guess.
Bassology, I've always had my own curriculum before I had the name for it, Bassology, in 2006. So I always had a name for it. But here's the background behind Bassology. I'm a self-taught player. I've never had a bass lesson, and I grew up in an urban environment. And how I learned how to play is probably how you learn how to play, what we call dropping the needle. We just drop the needle on the record, and we back it up till we get it. And what we're doing is chasing down notes, so we're hunting and pecking, right? And we're getting faster and faster at it. We don't realize that we're developing our ear. So what I realized that the urban way of learning how to play music is physically and sonically. We're getting comfortable here with the instrument, and we're getting comfortable here without labels. We're caught like that interval that we call a minor third, officially call a minor third. I had terminology for it back then. I called it a slant, because from here to here it looked like a slant to me. So I could start hearing that on the record. Oh, that's a slant. And so for me, that's still terminology that's valid for me. Absolutely. I just know how to call it a minor third also. But in my mind, I hear it. Okay, Brick House starts with a slant. So what I realized was that the urban players, we learn how to play physically and sonically. Right. And when I started teaching in the suburbs, I've realized that those kids get lessons right away. They get an instrument, get put in lessons, and they're learning visually and intellectually. A lot of them don't know how to play by ear because they've been taught songs and they haven't developed the ear. So, and physically, you find that they don't progress as fast. And I design Bassology for people in this concept. For any musical concept, you got to know it equally 4 ways: physically, sonically, visually, and intellectually. That's the Bassology method. And for instance, a musical concept could be a song or it could be a major scale. So like an A major scale from the note A, that may be how we know how to play it physically.
Right.
But sonically, you're a bass player. Close your eyes for a second. Did I play an A major scale?
No.
Yeah. I see. That means you know that scale sonically. So you know it physically, you know it sonically. Visually means if there's no bass in the room, can I teach you that scale? So I would say there's no bass in the room, Lee. Put your second finger on the 5th fret of the E string. I would teach them the strings first. And I say, put your pinky on the 7th fret of that same E string. Then put your first finger on the 4th fret of the A string. So I would give finger, fret, and string. Second finger on the 5th fret of the A string. Pinky on the 7th fret of the A string. First finger on the 4th fret of the D string. Third finger on the 6th fret of the D string. And pinky on the 7th fret of the D string. So that's understanding it visually. It doesn't mean with my real eyes, with my mind's eye.
Right.
And intellectually, it means from the note A, moving the distance, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So every concept I teach it those 4 ways: physically, sonically, visually, and intellectually. And you can always ask yourself, with any new concept, of those 4 ways, which way am I best in? Of those 4 ways, which way am I worse in? And you'll always know what to practice. You'll always know what to practice.
Right.
If you ask yourself those. I'm rambling, sorry. Because
I
get excited. I got goosebumps. I love this stuff.
No, like I said, it's so incredibly insightful. And I wanted to ask you, how has the explosion of technology helped learning, or has it hindered learning?
I think it's done both, honestly. I think with any kind of technology, we take steps forward and we take steps back. Like I can use my phone to talk to somebody in Singapore, and it doesn't cost me any extra money than talking to somebody down the street. But sometimes I'm guilty of sitting across from somebody I love at a table and not talking to them.
Right.
So that's a step forward, and it's a step back at the same time. The internet is like that. You can find great information on what I call YouTube University, but you can find just as much, if not more, bad or wrong information.
Right. I see a lot of kids learning from YouTube videos.
Yeah, a lot of kids are learning from YouTube videos, and they don't know how to, adults too, they don't know how to discern what's valid and what's good and what's not valid. And technology can't weed that out for you because you don't need a certificate to post a video on YouTube or write tab on the internet. So, and most time, working musicians who could do the stuff right don't have time to do it.
Right.
So it's that other inexperienced musician writing tab that's bad a lot, or teaching something in a YouTube video. But it's with Skype. Skype was invented in 2003, and I started teaching using Skype in 2007. Right. So I have students, weekly students, in Australia and China and Europe that I couldn't teach, without a private jet and a lot of money. Yeah. So it's a step forward in that way, but like I said, it's a step back too. We can fly to LA in 5 hours. They used to have to do it in a horse and buggy, but they knew the terrain. Yeah. From having to travel from here, they knew what the terrain in Colorado was like. Nobody who flies now know what the terrain is like anywhere but where they live. And where they're going. It's always a step forward and a step back, and we got to live with that.
You are able to pretty much express yourself however you want on a bass. Yeah. You've reached that level. What's the next challenge? How do you challenge yourself? When you pick it up, what's the next mountain to climb?
For me, just like with my English vocabulary, I can express myself better the bigger I make that vocabulary. I'm always trying to increase my vocabulary. On my way out here, I was on the internet Googling a Neapolitan 6 chord, even though I know what one is. Then I started Googling augmented 6 chords like French 6 and Italian 6. So I'm always trying to find, even if it's archaic, like those things that we think we might not see in current music. I'm thinking of ways of how I can teach it and how I can apply it, or see if it shows up in current music. So I'm always increasing my knowledge base because we're always expressing our knowledge base or lack thereof.
Right.
We're all verbally, if I start talking to a rocket scientist, no matter how much I pretend like I know what I'm talking about, he's going to know right away. And when somebody starts talking to me about theory, no matter how impressive they're trying to sound,
Right.
I want to know right away what they know and what they don't know.
Sure.
And so I'm always trying to increase my knowledge base, and I'm not a young man anymore, so playing fast doesn't mean anything to me, even though I can play fast.
Right.
But expressing myself in every kind of way with my English vocabulary and with my musical vocabulary, that's really what I'm trying to do, just express myself honestly and just trying to express myself honestly and not try to impress people. Because I think just, especially as males and as American males, we worried about the impression that we're leaving sometimes as a musician. And for me, in the large scheme of things, like I told people earlier today, I said, I'd rather leave for a room and people say good things about me as a person than brag about my bass playing, because there's tons of great bass players out there. Yeah. And that's amazing that there's so many great bass players. But there's a reason why I choose not to meet a lot of my heroes, my music heroes, because we put them on a pedestal, and that's not fair to them.
Sure.
And sometimes they can let you down as people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd rather just read about somebody and keep them on that pedestal in my mind and say, just worship them from afar, Right. And I haven't met some of my heroes, and that happened. I'm always conscious of that when somebody meets me and they're excited about meeting me, because I'm entitled to a bad day. Sure. But I'm conscious of that if I meet that 14-year-old kid who's been looking forward to meeting me. So no matter what kind of day I had, I put that on the back burner.
Right.
And that kid gets my undivided attention as if nothing is going on bad in my life.
Right.
And I think all those things are way more important to me than what's happening musically. And that's really important. But how I develop as a person, that's what's going to make my mom proud.
And that's going to be the legacy.
That's going to be the legacy, yeah.
It's not bass master. It's not music theory master. It's how you treat others and the impact you've had on them, maybe even as an instructor.
Yeah, and maybe even more so as an instructor, because I realized that, I'm part coach, I'm part teacher, I'm part philosopher, mathematician. Mm-hmm. And so I'm impacting these people in a lot of ways. Sometimes I'm a lot of people's therapist because my hourly rate is a lot cheaper than their therapist rate. I honestly had a guy tell me, he said, man, I used to go see a therapist for $500 an hour every week. And he said, after studying with you for a year, I realized I was getting the same benefits, so I stopped seeing my therapist. I'm just going to keep giving you just a little bit of money. So I get the impact. I mean, maybe not to the full extent, because I'll go to a place I've never been, and somebody will know who I am, and that's a little unnerving for me. I just never really expected. Right. It's appreciated, but imagine going to a place you've never been, like China, and somebody calls your name on the subway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool. And
are you an introvert or?
Miles Briggs would say so, and I would say so too, because I think what you are is how you recharge your batteries, and I recharge my batteries from being alone and by water and by mountains, not by being around people. So I would say I'm an introvert. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find that has ever been it's never kept you off stage, is what I'm trying to say. It's never been an issue when you're about to go up in front of.
I've had stage fright for really bad.
Oh, have you really?
Even with Victor, and they used to talk to me about it. And Victor said something to me one time that was funny and helped me a lot with my stage fright. He said, man, if you go out there tonight and take the best solo you've ever taken, we're going to really love you. He said, but if you go out there tonight and take the worst solo you've ever taken, we're going to love you. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
That's great.
Yeah, so I had stage fright really bad, and that's all ego, man. It was just like I had to put ego on the back burner, because it's really worrying about what people think of you. And I'm like, I don't need to be worried about. You don't have to worry about what people think to you if you come to them with 100% honest. Right. If it's honest, it's honorable. So as long as you come to people with, this is what honestly how I feel right now. Tomorrow might feel different. Yesterday I might have felt different on stage, but right now this is 100% how I feel. There's no wrong way. There's no inadequate way to be you. Yeah. I can inadequately try to be Victor or try to be Marcus or Larry Graham, but I can't inadequately be me. That's an impossibility. So as long as I just go out there and say, this is what I got to say today. It has to be good enough. It can't not be good enough.
Cannot be. I wanted to ask you real quickly about the cruise. Tell me about the cruise.
Bassology at sea.
Yeah.
So we're going by the moniker Bassology around the world because we're doing on-land camps too. I just got back from Australia down under, and I did a camp in New Zealand, and I did one in Sydney, and I did a clinic in Melbourne. Before then, I did a Caribbean cruise, and did the camp, a week-long camp, and it was good to receive really well. And I get to do what I do, and men and women get to bring their significant others or their families. So I wanted to create a camp environment that people didn't have to be away from their family for a week. And so they could sit in the class for a couple of hours and then go, and the significant other could be at the pool or at the spa or whatever. And then they get to enjoy this port day without some bass teacher screaming intervals at them or whatever. And so it was just like trying to find something. There's so many great things that are offered out there with all these different camps. I just wanted to do something that offered different, not try to be better, not try to be worse. But I was like, well, how can I keep families together? And so after the European one, I did one in the Caribbean. And last year we did one in the Caribbean. And I had one planned for Cuba next year. And then the current administration put a kibosh on that. So you can't have any cruise boats going to Cuba. But I got this cruise planned to Cuba when they open those doors again. And I want to do an overnight in Cuba. And one of the excursions, the Bassology excursions, will be to go hear some great Cuban music and secretly book a gig for the students who attend with these great Cuban musicians, and then spend an overnight there, see the cars and see the country. So
that'd be incredible.
Yeah, so it's just another way to do something cool. I was going to say it's not for the faint of heart, but I don't want to scare people away. But one of the things I say with my literature is, if you don't think it's important to learn theory or learn the notes on the bass, then don't sign up for my camp. This is not the right camp for you. If you want to know why music works and how it works, then it's a serious curriculum and it's in depth. But if somebody's not serious about learning it, I'll recommend other places for them. I want them to get what they want out of it, and not. And if somebody doesn't see the value of knowing the notes in all 30 keys, then we're going to bore each other. I'm not just going to bore them; they're going to bore me too.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's next? What's next for you? 2020 starts midnight.
Midnight, yeah. So I got to go to NAMM in January. NAMM is fun. So me and my girl, we're going to NAMM, and she reignited that fire in me. So we go to NAMM together and hang out, and we get to see some cool things. I'm a tourist at heart. I put the word tour in tourism because I'm touring because I'm a tourist, so I like doing that. Right. And then in February, hopefully we might be doing a clinic here or in March. But in February, I got to go to Belize and do a festival there. I got to go do one of my on-land camps in the Keys. So if you go to BassologyAroundTheWorld.com, you'll see the itinerary. So we're gonna wreak havoc in the Keys. We're gonna plan a camp for DC. Talking to the Playroom in Charlotte about doing a camp there. Got one on the books but not announced in New Hampshire. I'm going to stop and do one in Aglow on the way. Wow, I'm getting excited because I'm forgetting places. and I might get a chance to go back to Australia and work with some people in the bush. Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I can't thank you enough for stopping with us today. And, if you want to find out more, where can they find you on the internet?
You can go to bassology.net for the one-on-one lessons, but you can go to BassologyAroundTheWorld.com and BassologyAtSea.com. They will all end up being linked together, so you can find out everything that you want to know about me. And you know what? My phone number is on all my sites and my Facebook page, Anthony Wellington /Bassology. You can call me, you can text me, even if it's not about music. If you just want to talk about boxing or sports.
And as you said, so we're looking at early next year doing a clinic here at Guitar Wishes here in Lincoln. That would be incredible. So
shout out to Roger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uncle Steve. Lee.
Well, we do our best. But I can't thank you enough again, and I hope that you have an incredible new year. And I think you're going to play us out with something.
Yeah, let's just let's just talk about some modes and pentatonics and arpeggios.
All right.
Pentatonics. Mode. Pentatonic. Scale. Blues. Mode. Pentatonic. Arpeggio. So I'm not thinking about these things at all. I just know them so unconsciously that I don't have to look at the bass. And I'm just using my voice to phrase what I'm playing. I'm just matching my words to the notes I'm playing.
That's amazing, man. That's so cool. Well, hey, before we leave, I do want to say that he's pulled down a bass off the wall here that belongs to Roger, but it's got Aguilar pickups in it, incredible pickups from Aguilar, and thank you so much for playing on it. Yeah, Aguilar.
Aguilar. Roger, thank you for letting me use your bass.
All right. Well, again, so check us out at guitarwishes.com. Check out our Facebook site, and of course, smash the notification bell for new content uploaded today. For everybody here, I'm Lee. We're out. And that's after one lesson with Lee here at Guitar Wishes. Come on out and check us out.
I'm really horrible at playing on the spot.
Cruising for a bruising.